Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jade and today I am doing a video that I saw a booktuber do and I just wanted to do it. Haley in Bookland did this video where you pick 30 books that you would keep if you had to get rid of all your books. And the reason she did it was it's just kind of like a lot of people have been talking about like minimalism and stuff like that and like only keeping what you really want. So she decided that she was just gonna pick 30 books and I want to do that. It was definitely a process because if I'm gonna be honest, a lot of the books I want to keep are books that I haven't read because I think I'm gonna love them. I don't know why, but like just when I look at this bookshelf, I want to keep all of it, but I only kept books that I have read that have made a big impact on my life. I have not picked books I haven't read. I could do a whole different video on like if I only kept 30 books that I haven't read, because that would kind of be like my TBR that I really need to read. But anyways, I want to get into this video. As you can see a couple of them, so I'm going to get into those first. For my first two books, this is a controversial thing I'm about to say. I have not read the Harry Potter series. I've only read the first book and I don't remember reading it. I just didn't ever pick it up because when I was in like middle school and stuff like that, when everyone was really into it, like in middle school, all my friends were obsessed with it, and for some reason I just decided I didn't want to pick it up because they were all obsessed with it and telling me to. But I would pick the first Harry Potter book, The Sorcerer's Stone, and then the third book, The Prisoner of Azkaban. I picked the first book so that it would inspire me to actually read the series because I know I really need to do it, and it's honestly really gorgeous. But the reason I would pick the third one is because the third one was my favorite movie as a child. Though I never read the Harry Potter books, I watched the movies all the time, and I literally every day I went home from school, I watched this movie. I'm not even joking, every single day. This movie just holds a really special place in my heart from my childhood, and I really do want to read the series. I especially want to read this book because I know that I'll love it. So that's why I have those two. The next book I have over here, actually, I'm going to go with is Beautiful Creatures by, who is it by? Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. I didn't know it was by two authors. The reason I would pick this book is because it's another situation like Harry Potter. I have picked this book up so many times and never been able to finish it. And I can't tell you why, because I absolutely love this book. This movie I also would watch way too often. I watched this movie a lot when I was like end of middle school and like beginning of high school. But for some reason I could never finish the book, and it's not because it's a bad book. I absolutely love this book and I love this movie, so I don't really know what's wrong with me, but I want to finish it. I want to keep it so I can finish it, and because I don't know, I love it, which is conflicting. I love how I started this video off of this is all books that I have read when I haven't read these three, but in my head I have, if that makes sense, because I know exactly what the story is, but like all my other books I don't know. So this, I only have the fourth book right now, but I would pick the first book from the series. My friend just has it, and it's the Finishing School series by Gail Carringer, and the first book is Etiquette and Espionage. I love this book series so much. It has a really special place in my heart. I think it's one of the most fun and playful books I've ever read, so I would absolutely pick the first one just for the memories attached to it. I just don't have it right now. I need to get my books back from her. The next book I have, these actually all go together. I wish I'd put them next to each other. But so I'm going to go with, I would pick the Percy Jackson series. I picked a couple specific ones, and that's all the ones I would keep. So from the first original series, I picked the first book, Percy Jackson the Lightning Thief, and then I picked the fifth book, The Last Olympian. If I was going to pick another one, I would also pick the third book. I don't know if that, yes. I also picked the third book because these books, The Titan's Curse, have really special places in my heart. These are the ones that I loved the most from the series, the ones that I always reread. When I reread the series, a lot of the times actually I would skip the second one because I was too excited for the third one, and then I would skip the fourth one because I was too excited for the fifth one. Because specifically these three from the series had a really, really special place in my heart. And I could never ever get rid of these books. I love the first book so much, and like all the books, because they're so used. Like when I pick this book up, I can just feel all the times I've read it in it. And I think that's really beautiful. And in this one, you can like see all the times I've read it. And it just really reminds me of my childhood. So I would absolutely have to go with these. And then as a continuation with that, I picked my favorite books as well from the Lost Hero series, because obviously the Percy Jackson series is my favorite series of all time, and it always will be. But my favorite ones, I think, will probably be a little controversial. But my favorite books in the series, not actually controversial, but The Lost Hero and The Son of Neptune. I loved these the most when everyone was discovering what was happening, and we got introduced to three really, really amazing new characters. I know when I first read The Lost Hero, I was so mad that Percy wasn't in it. But as I reread the series, I really grew to love the first one because it's so different than the other ones almost. Like the characters are so different, the quest is so different, the fact that they have a dragon, like everything about this book is just really new and exciting, and I really do love the characters, except for Jason. Like he's okay, he's not bad, just kind of there. I have grown a new respect for Jason in another book that I'm about to talk about. I don't want to go there. We're gonna not go there. But the next book I have is The Son of Neptune. This is my favorite of all time. For one reason, because Percy's in it, but two, it's because he went to the Roman camp. Not really spoilers, because everyone should have read this by now, but spoiler alert if you haven't read this. I'm not going to give anything away, really, but I'm just going to say, like, he woke up in the Roman camp and just kicks ass and shows the Romans who's boss, and, like, shows, like, how awesome he is, even though he's kind of supposed to be an outcast. He, like, makes it because he's so amazing. I was like, yes, that's my baby boy. The next one I have, also in continuation with this series, is The Trials of Apollo, Book 1, The Hidden Oracle. And I picked this book for multiple reasons. One of them, also kind of spoilers, but not spoilers. Percy's in it, so that's one of the reasons. I love this specifically because after all of the first 10 books in the series, like, Percy's going on to live his own life. He's not like going to be a big part of any books anymore, but you get to see him and you get to know how he's doing. I'm gonna sneeze. Oi. But you get to see him and you get to know how he's doing, which I think is really wonderful. And Apollo's honestly one of my favorite characters. He's so funny, and it's interesting to watch what happens to him, but I also love how much he grows in this book and realizes things about himself. And it's just honestly a really good series. I'm really heartbroken over the series because I think this is, like, this series specifically, it's another 5-book series, but Rick Riordan is doing something in his books that he hasn't really done in the past. His characters are growing, so the plot points he can do are more mature. And seeing that is honestly kind of horrible, because when you read the first couple books, you know, since they're so young, like, it's going to be okay. Like, nothing too bad can happen. But now that they're older, like, it's acceptable to do worse things to your characters. So, going along with my childhood loves, I have, of course, The Hunger Games and Catching Fire by Susan Collins. I had to pick these. The Hunger Games is my favorite book of all time besides the Percy Jackson. I would say they're actually equal to each other. And I haven't read this book in so long, but it's really time to reread these books. Like, honestly, all the books on these lists, like, I need to reread so far. Like, besides the Finishing School series, because I read that recently, but every book I've talked about, I really need to reread. And I think I need to have a year of rereads. Like, I think that might be my summer goal, is to just reread. Like, reread a book, read a new book, reread a book, read a new book. I think that's what I want to do, but I love them so much. And so I picked The Hunger Games, of course, but the reason I picked Catching Fire is because I think this is honestly the best book of the series. The first book is, like, on a whole nother tier all of its own. But like this book opened up the world so much, opened up the dynamics and everything, and it's such a beautiful book, and the game setting they're in is just amazing. I love the first book because it's more innocent, but I love the second book because it's more real. So it's just really great. I'm going to talk about some of the newer books I have in here, and then I'll go back to some more childhood. But the next series I want to talk about that I would keep, the second and third book to the Court of Thorns and Roses series. I have The Court of Mist and Fury and The Court of Rings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This has become one of my favorite series of all time now. I definitely have two stages in my life, my past childhood and then my now. And this is my favorite series as of now. I love this book series so much. The second book was honestly life-changing to me because I've never read a book like this in my life, and I love this book more than anything. And when I was reading it, I was just so excited the whole time, and I was so into it. And I love the third book as well. Even though a lot of people didn't like the third book as much, I still absolutely loved it. I think it was really important, every part that happened, and I think it was all really interesting. And I just love these books so much. Just holding these books is making me so happy and sentimental. The next book I have, I don't think I've ever talked about on my channel, but this is one of my childhood favorites, my freshman year of high school. I read I'm the Vampire, That's Why by Michael Bradley. Oh my gosh, I have the hiccups and sneezes. It's a bad day. But this was the first adult novel series that I really got into. I've read the whole series. I love it all. I'm gonna sneeze. Because it's just like a really fun, romantic novel, but it has paranormal stuff in it. And if I'm gonna be honest, I am just a sucker for paranormal romance. I don't read it a lot, but when I pick it up, I can't put it down. Like, I read this entire series in a month, and it's about 12 books because I would read each book in 2 or 3 days, which is how I could normally read a book if I don't put it down. But like this series I can't put down, so I kept reading it. It's good. It's definitely for like older readers, though. It has some adult themes in it, but it's honestly one of my favorite books of all time, and I also need to reread that whole series. The next book I have here is The Arithmetist by Brandon Sanderson. I love this for many reasons. One of the reasons I love this is because I have never in my entire life read a book with this original of a plot, and I don't think I ever will. And it's the reason I started loving Brandon Sanderson, because it's the first book I read by him. This book just swept me when I read it. I couldn't believe how amazing it is. It hasn't stuck with me in the same way like Percy Jackson in The Hunger Games has, but I think if I had read it when I was younger, it would have. I read this, I think my sophomore or junior year though, so books don't stick with me the same way they used to, but I really think this would, and it still has, just in a different way. This story is just so intricate and unexpected, and I love it so, so much. So I think everyone needs to read this story. I think everyone needs to read all of Brandon Sanderson's books, but that is my favorite book by him just because of how important it has been to me. This next book is a collection of short stories. It's Toil and Trouble, 15 Tales of Women in Witchcraft, and it's edited by Jessica Sportswood and Tess Sharp. This book made it onto my list for me because of an emotional impact it had on me. I listened to this on audiobook while I was working, and I read it. But I saved all the stories that had like really, that I thought were really amazing. But one of them towards the end I read, it's called The Gathering Girls, and it's by Emery Lord. And one of the characters just had an event going on in her life that I really related to, and I actually started crying during work. And it just really hit me, and it stuck with me actually a lot, and made me think a lot about like myself and relationships, and I've just really enjoyed this book because I think it helped me a lot. The next book I have to talk to you guys about is A Map of Days by Ransom Riggs. I also haven't read this one, so I guess this isn't all books I haven't read. But the reason this made it onto this list is because it's actually a signed copy, which is really amazing to me because this is one of my favorite series of all times, and I do have the first novel in this book, which is also a book I really want to reread. I love this series so much because when I read it, for some reason, it's just an embodiment of summertime to me. Because I read it in the summer, and it does take place in summer. And even though it's dark and has so many dark themes, it's also so cheerful and bright at the same time. And whenever I think of this book, I can't help but be happy. And I love this book. I love everything about it, from the way it looks and feels to the actual book. And so I also picked the fourth one because it's a signed copy by him, and I really like his books. And I'm really excited to read it. I know I need to soon, but I'm definitely going to do that. The next book I have for you guys is... I didn't pick the third one. What was I doing? So I also, one of my favorite series is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. So I picked my favorite book from that series. The third one is also my favorite, but I picked Crown of Midnight because I can remember how I felt when I read it. When I read this book, there was two situations. One of them, I was at my grandma's house with my whole family. It was March, and it was really hot out, and I was sitting outside on the deck, and there's snow around me, but it's warm, and I'm crying. And my family's, like, wondering what's wrong with me. I'm like, just go away, I'm reading. And then I remember finishing this book at one of my boyfriend's houses, and I was just crying and bawling as I'm finishing it, and I'm like, get away from me, like, I need to finish this book. And like, this book just really hit me emotionally, but like a good way, not like a devastating way, but a really, really great way. And I just love this book so much. The next book I have is also kind of an interesting choice. It's Spontaneous by Erin Starmer. When I think of this book, this also just really reminds me of summer, and I just really enjoy books that remind me of summer because that makes me happy to think about. This is also just such a unique and interesting read. It's about a high school senior class, and all of the kids in that senior class just start spontaneously combusting, and it only affects their senior class. So it's like it's a national problem, and everyone's watching them, but they're still just also trying to live their lives because they're a bunch of teenagers who are dying, and they know they're gonna die. So it's just a really funny, enchanting read to me, and it reminds me of summer. The next book I have is The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. If I don't think of The Arithmetist, this is my favorite book by him. I think it's I think this is the best written book, plot-wise, character development, like, in any way that I've ever read. I don't think I'll ever read a better written book than Brandon Sanderson books, but specifically this one. And it's just so amazing, and I love the feel of it. Like, sometimes feeling books makes me happy, and I've talked about that with a couple different books, but this is one of the ones that makes me happy by feeling them. The next book I have is The Maze Runner by James Dasher. This is also a really well-loved book, so I also love holding it because I can feel that. This was one of my favorite books when I was younger. I don't really like the rest of the series that much, but I love the first one a lot, and I've been wanting to reread this for a very, very long time, so it's also going to be a goal for me. I think I'm going to do a video of books I want to reread this summer. I think my goal for this summer is to reread a lot of my favorite books, but for one, I fell in love with Miho. I was in love with him, and I just loved the story so much. It's so good. The next book I got this is the only full series I put on this list, because this is a full series that I love in every possible way. And while the Percy Jackson series, I'd say, is my favorite series of all time, I would say this is also my favorite series of all time because it spoke to me so much. But that is the Shadow Falls series by C.C. Hunter. This is kind of cheating because this is a 2-in-1 book I have. So there should be 5, but there's only 4. Which is, what are the first 2 books called? We have Born at Midnight, Awake at Dawn, Whispers at Moonrise, Taken at Dusk, and Chosen at Nightfall. So those are all the books that are in this series, and I also need to reread this book. I love this series so much. I've reread it at least 6 times. I'm pretty sure it's been exactly 6 times. It's a story that I never get sick of, no matter what. Like, I can reread it so many times and I'll never get sick of it. And I think the reason that I picked the whole series is like with the Percy Jackson series, there's like 2 books in the series that I didn't ever want to read because I was too excited for the next books. But in this series, I was so excited for every book, and every book was so important to the series, and I loved all of them. So that's why the whole series is in there. I don't think I've ever been like impacted by a book series in the same way or lost in a world as hard as I do with this one. And I'm getting to my last couple here. I have Histories All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. This is one of my new favorites. This one broke me emotionally really bad. I've never cried so much reading a book. But it also changed my perspective on the world, I think, a little bit. And it's stuck with me so much. I think it's such a beautiful, heart-wrenching story. And I love it a lot. And I could never give it to that book, I don't think. The next one I have is the only other book series from my childhood that I only like the first book of, and that's Divergent by Veronica Roth. I don't like the rest of the series. I'm happy just sticking with the first one. I've actually never read the third one, and I don't plan on it. I'm happy with where I am, but this series also, like, the world and everything struck me so much, and I wanted to live in it so much, which is how I feel about a couple books, and that's why, like, I don't like the other books, because it changed the world too much, and I liked the world the way it was. So that's why I don't like the rest of the series, but I love this book so much, and I also want to reread that one. Not as much as the other ones, so the other ones are higher on my list. Then the last one I have is A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray. There's something about this world that is so breathtakingly beautiful to me that I love it, and I would want to keep this book because I want to stay in this world. It's so bright and cheerful and beautiful and dark and scary at the same time, and that combination is just really, really enchanting to me. So I would never give rid of that book. But that's all I have for you guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me in the comments down below if any of these books make it onto your top 30 list, or some of the books that you would never be able to get rid of. I would really like to know, especially if they're ones I haven't read or ones that I'm needing to read, because maybe that'll give me some inspiration. But I love you all so, so very much, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye-bye!